Hello everybody, welcome back to this video series on how to make a helicopter in Autodesk Fusion 360. So once again, thank you to everyone who has been supporting this channel. We're about to reach 10,000 views in total, which is super exciting to me. On top of that, if you'd like to continue supporting, please do like, comment, and subscribe. And further support can be done by subscribing to my Patreon page from as little as £1 a month, but more on that later. Let's dive straight into Fusion 360. So what I've done over here is I've just replaced the blueprints because you may remember from the previous video, the blueprints I selected earlier were a little bit off, and I tried repeating the same process with a different set of blueprints, and it worked out just fine. So if you'd like to do that, do try that again, but if you're happy to work with the previous blueprints, go ahead and do that as well. Great, so in this video we're going to be focusing on the fuselage, and the way I'm going to make the fuselage is split into two parts. So one section is the cabin section, which is where the crew will sit, and one section is the top section, which is a fairing for all the rotor mechanisms on top. And it'll get clear as to why I've split this into two different parts. So when we look at the front view makes it a bit more evident why. So the bottom section is more of a square/rectangular cross-section with a little bit of rounded edges, and the top has a completely different cross-section. So in general, it's a good idea that if the structure of the body has a different cross-section, to split them differently altogether. So though, if you've seen my aircraft video series, you already know that I use the T-Spline way of doing things. So we enter the T-Spline workspace, and then we use a preset, then we extrude that and shape it accordingly along the span of the length of the fuselage. Great, so let's start doing that right away. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into create form, and under create, there are a couple of options we can choose from. So we've got a box, we've got a plane, we've got cylinder, sphere, torus, quad ball, and pipe. So obviously, if we look at cylinder, a cylinder has a circular cross-section area. But like we mentioned before, the cross-section of this fuselage is not circular, it's actually more of a square. So the best option over here is to choose a box and then modify the cross-section of the box and then use that to extrude. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to click on box, and the plane that we're going to make this on is the front plane. And as always, I want this to be symmetrical. So I'm going to hover my mouse over the origin point, which means that's the center. And then I'm going to go above a little bit. And to me, this looks like the center point of that square. So I'm going to click there, and I'm just going to try and estimate first what this would look like. So you can see that if I have the outer box of this square over here, and then we modify it later, it will work out really well. So I'm just going to click over here, and this is the box that Fusion creates. So already it's got rounded edges, and we don't need to do a lot of modification to match the size of the fuselage. Great, so once this is done, I'm just going to go ahead on the right-hand side, and I'm just going to give this an arbitrary depth for now, because we're going to change this later. And one more thing that I want to take into account is the symmetry. So in the box parameters, you can see we've got length, length faces, width, width faces, and so on. But we also want a symmetry. So under symmetry, just click on mirror. And in my case, we want the length symmetry. So depending on how you made this box, you would probably have a different set of symmetry options. So mine is this green one over here, because that's this plane of symmetry for this helicopter. So that's the one I want, and I'm just going to press OK. Okay, great. Now, one other thing that I want to do is make this hollow. So I only want the perimeter of the box and not the box itself. So what does that mean? So if I click on one of these, you can see that because of the symmetry, it's already selected the other half as well. So I'm just going to click on that and press delete. And I'm going to repeat the same one for the bottom one. Okay, and now if I move around, you can see that from the top, it's become hollow. From the back, we're going to repeat the process. So I'm just going to click on this and press delete. And I'm going to press on this and click delete. Now what this has essentially done is it's created just the perimeter of the square with the rounded edges, and everything else inside is hollow. Okay, now when we go back to the front view, you can see that it's very closely resembling the front view of the helicopter. But we want to make a few changes, especially the ones on the top and the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge over here. So I'm just going to double click on that edge, and what that does is it selects every ring part of that edge. Then I'm going to right click on this and click on edit form. and I'm going to go back to the front view. I'm going to use this square over here to just drag this down a little bit till it's closely matching the cross-section of the fuselage. So I'm happy with that, so I'm going to go ahead and press OK. And you can see here that it's curving up a little bit, and I don't want that to happen. I want it to be as flat as possible. So I'm just going to click on this and revolve around it. And once again, I'm just going to double click on that edge, right click and edit form. And once again, in this case, because you want the plane of symmetry to remain, do not use the square because you can move it left or right. So instead of using that, just make sure you use just the up arrow and just drag it down a little bit. And I'm happy with that, so I'm going to press OK. So repeat this process till you have a shape that you like and that resembles closely to the helicopter that you want. So once again, I am going to do this over here, double click, edit form, go back to the front view, and maybe I want to try and do something like this. Okay, so I'm happy with that, so I'm going to go ahead and press OK. Now, if the helicopter or the aircraft that you are designing does not have a similar shape to this, what you can do is go ahead and create your own cross-section, which can then be extruded and be manipulated the same way as I'm about to show you. So making your own cross-section is something I will show when I'm doing the upper part of the fuselage. So either you can skip this part of the video or just skim along with it to see the main principle of what we do after we extrude this. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and go on the right view, and you can see currently this is in the middle of nowhere. So what I'm going to do is just highlight all of this, press M. So M is just move, and then I'm just going to drag this back a little bit till somewhere over here. Okay, and then I'm going to press OK. Now, one more thing I want to do is just double click anywhere on the body, edit form. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this side of things. So press delete. Oops. So just press delete, 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 and delete. All I want is just one ring over here, as you can see. Great. So now we can go ahead and start extruding. Great. So if you press OK on the workspace, you're going to go back to the normal one, which is not what we want. But in case you did that, you can just right click on your timeline and press edit, and you'll get back into the workspace. Okay, so now let's start extruding it. So what we want to do is follow the profile that my mouse is following right now. So we're just going to be focusing on the bottom section of the fuselage because that's the cross-section that we have right now. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double click on the rightmost edge over here. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to click edit form. What this does is it selects the entire ring on the back edge and it will allow us to edit it. So once you've done this, I am just going to follow that. So I'm going to shrink this a little bit. Actually, let me just bring it back a bit so it's more clear. Okay, then I'm going to press Alt on my keyboard, and what Alt does is it allows me to extrude it. So you'll see that it's created a new section instead of just pulling the previous one along. So Alt and drag. Great. Now I'm going to shrink this a little bit, so I'm going to match it somewhere over here. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just using this tool, so the corner one. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to scale that ring profile in 2 dimensions. So watch what happens here. So it's allowing me to do this in both these dimensions, okay? And so what we're trying to do is match the profile from the side view and also the top view. So I'll come to the top view in a second, but let's do the side view first. So I am going to just do that. Okay, and once you're happy with this, then you go to the top view. Now, in the top view, you can see over here that the profile that I've just extruded for is still a straight line, so we don't have to make any changes from the top view. Okay, so let's come back down and press Alt on our keyboard again, and then drag again. Okay, and now again, you can see that instead of following a flat line on the bottom, this actually goes down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the cross-section down a little bit so it's closely matching what the helicopter's blueprint is doing. Okay, once you're happy with the side profile, go back to the top profile and make sure that you're still following the curve over here. Now, one thing you can notice right away is that the blueprint of the top view is not in its correct position. This is because the plane of symmetry for my green line is not matching the plane of symmetry for the blueprint. And as a result, even though my section is closely matching the blueprint from the bottom, it's not doing the same thing on the top. But that's nothing to worry about. We can go ahead and change this position of the blueprint in a second. Okay, so let's continue. So press Alt on your keyboard and drag once more. And obviously, the more accurate you want this to be, the more discretizations you'd have, which means the more the spacing between two of these rings is going to be smaller. Okay, so once again, I'm just going to drag this down a little bit over here and go back up. And once again, it's still a straight line, so I'm not going to make any changes there yet. Drag once again, pull it down a little bit. And still, everything is good to go. And now this is where the tricky bit begins. Because this was relatively flat, we didn't have to make a lot of changes. But now you can see that the back of the fuselage is curving upwards, which means the more curvature you have, the higher the amount of sections you want to make it as more accurate as possible. Okay, so over here, I'm going to scale it down just a little bit and match it up and go back up. And this is still fine, so I'm going to leave it as it is. And once again, I'm going to drag, scale it down a little bit more, match the profile, go back up. And now you can see that the fuselage is no longer following a straight path, which means now from the top view, I'm going to use the same tool to shrink it in 2 dimensions. There we go. Okay, now we want to repeat the process again. So just Alt on your keyboard, drag, reduce the size, match it up from the side, go back to the top, and reduce the size again. Okay, so something like this. And once more, or maybe a few times more, we can repeat the process. So I'm going to do something like this. Again, go back up and reduce the size. So from the top view, at least in the case of this helicopter, what you can see is if you just follow my mouse, it's following this path over here. That is actually a visual deception. The helicopter does do that, but when you go onto Google and see some reference images, well, you can see that the bottom of the fuselage is not following that thin part of the helicopter. That only appears to be the case because we've got these 2 exhaust vents coming out of the fuselage. So be careful when you do stuff like this, because when you're modeling these things inside of Fusion and you're doing it for the first time in 3D and you're not quite sure what is going on over here, make sure you go to Google and see some reference images of the model that you're creating. So when you look at this model, you can understand a little bit more as to what's actually going on in each view from the top and the side. Okay, great. So now come back down and extrude it once more. And I'm just going to leave it somewhere over here. So something like this. And again, from the top view, just going to match it till it follows the diameter of that tail over there. Great, so I am happy with this. So I'm going to press OK. And so this is us just finished the fuselage from the back point till the front, till the middle section at least. And now I'm just going to go ahead and make this cross section up until here. Now, if you've seen my aircraft series, well, you know what I'm about to do next. Once we finished the main part of the fuselage and we patch it up and turn it into a solid, we're basically going to be using the Loft feature to create the nose. So at this point, if you want to, you can already go ahead and do that. If you're not quite sure what I'm talking about, just follow along and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so just double click on the front this time. And once again, it's selected the whole ring. So right click, edit form, and now Alt and drag to follow this profile. So maybe I want to do something like this. And once again, just drag till you reach over here. And once again, the moment you're done with the side profile, always go ahead and check on the top. And here, we're just going to do something like this. And come back down. And this is now good to go. Okay, so the reason why I've left out the nose over here, in case you didn't know from the aircraft video series, is that this has a special sort of feature because when you look from the top, although it's following a similar pattern and from the side as well, there comes a point where there's just too much of curvature happening at the tip that the T-spline just does not look good anymore. So what we do instead is what I'm about to show you in a second. So once you're done with the main bulk of the bottom fuselage, you can go ahead and press Finish Form and just scan around and see whether you like what you see. Okay, so if this doesn't look like much yet, don't worry. This is a very, very basic shape right now. We're going to go ahead and add more detail to it. So once you're happy with the way this looks for now, if you go under your body section, you can see that this is currently a surface body. It's not an actual solid. We want to turn this into a solid. And the way we do this is by going into the surface workspace and clicking on the patch one. So we're going to click on patch and patch that side over there and press OK. And we're going to patch the back section as well over there and press OK. And so what we've done is we've basically just added a cap on both sides of the openings. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and stitch these surfaces together. So once I stitch 1, 2, and 3, so once I stitch these three together, these three bodies will then combine into a solid body. And there we have it. So that's our main fuselage complete. Great, so now let's go ahead and make our nose section. So the first thing we want to do is create a sketch on top of our flat nose section. So right over there. And let's go ahead to the front view and press P on our keyboard. So that is also under Create and Project, Include, and Project. And what this allows us to do is it includes the surface or the geometry that we select to be included in into our current sketch. Sorry. So what I want to select here is the very front profile over here. So that's the one I want to select, and make sure this is specified entities, and just go ahead and press OK. Now what this allows me to do is have this as a selection. So even if I hide my body right here, this is still included inside my sketch. So it's a very useful tool that I like to use often. Okay, great. Once we have that, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to partition this into half. So I'm going to go ahead and create a line from the origin upwards and from here downwards. Okay, and you can see this has basically allowed me to create two halves of the nose section over here. And you'll see why this is very useful. Okay, go ahead and press Finish Sketch. And now what I want to do is go to the right view and create a new sketch on the right plane. So the right plane in this case is my plane of symmetry. And this is why when we set up the blueprints and set up the sketches, it was really useful because we don't have to deal with problems relating to bad symmetry in the future, as long as these things are still in the symmetry plane. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and press P on my keyboard again. And what I want to project this time is that top dot over there and the bottom dot over here. And you'll remember this from when we created that partition in the middle. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and press OK. And now once again, if I hide the body, at least this is still visible to me. Okay, great. So under Create, I'm going to go ahead and click on Spline and Control Point Spline. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to create curves, and I can manipulate those curves after I've drawn them. So you'll see what I'm about to do here. I can snap to that top point that we just created, and I can follow the section of the nose closely. So obviously the more curvature it has, the more points you want ideally over there. That's just a general rule of thumb. So that's my nose curvature there. And if you're happy with this, then you can use it. If you're not, you can also click on these black dots and manipulate the curves if you're not happy with the way your profile looks. So I'm just going to tweak a little bit over here, and I'm happy with that. But you'll also notice this is just a single curve right now. What we want is a closed surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line from the top dot there till the bottom dot over here. And what this allows me to do is it now closes that entire section and turns it into one single surface, which is exactly what we need. Now I can go ahead and finish sketch. And now if I just revolve around a little bit, you can see we are now left with three different sections. Now try and pay attention over here. This is a very crucial step. We've got one section over here, which is the right side of the front of the nose. Then we've got the side profile of the nose. Then we've got another section which is the left section on the front of the nose. Okay, and now what I want to do is loft these three together. So if you don't know what Loft does, Loft is essentially a tool that will allow you to blend different cross sections. So watch closely. I'm going to go to Create in the Surface workspace, click on Loft, make sure nothing is selected right now. The first thing I want to select is the front section. Sorry about that. So the front section, side profile, and the third profile. And you can see over here, it says closed profiles cannot be coplanar for a loft. Now, sometimes this doesn't work. And in this case, it didn't work. This is actually a good thing because I can show you how to fix it. So let's deselect profile 3 and just let profile 1 and 2 be selected and press OK. Now, if we go to the front view, we can't see much. From the side, we also can't see much, except that it looks pretty good from the side. But if you go to the top view, it looks like this. And this is not what we want. We don't want this to just look like a triangle. We want this to actually follow this curved shape over here. And like I said before, the top blueprint was not in its correct position, so we're going to go ahead and fix that now before we do anything else. So under canvases, I'm going to right click on the top one, edit canvas, and I'm just going to move this back a little bit. And there we go. Okay, great. So what we can do instead is just right click on the loft we've just created and edit the feature. And instead of saying connected and connected, we can actually give this a direction. And you can see what this does already is it gives it a bit of a curvature. So this by default, in my case, looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK. But if it doesn't look good in your case, what you can do is add rails on top of the loft so that when you loft these together, it guides the loft to follow the rail geometry. In this case, your rail would be this curved surface from there to there and following this curve over here. If you don't know how that's done, you can go ahead and watch a few loft tutorials on YouTube where they teach you how to use loft with guided rails. You can use that technique over here to make sure that it looks good. If you still have any problems, please do feel free to leave those in the comments below. And if you want me to make a dedicated video for that, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know. Great. So once I'm happy with this, what I'm going to do next is mirror this. So first of all, I'm going to go to Create, Mirror, and the body I want to mirror is the nose section over here. And the mirror plane I want to select is our plane of symmetry. And I'm just going to click on Join and press OK. And there we have it. But like before, these are now surfaces and we want to turn them into solid bodies. So I'm going to hide my main fuselage. And first of all, I'm just going to patch this like before. So just patch that so it adds that cap on the top. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch these two together and that will turn it into a nose solid body. Great, so that's our main cabin section complete. Before we do anything else, I'm just going to double click on that over there. I'm going to call this main fuselage. And I'm going to double click on this and call this nose underscore fuselage. Great, so there we have it. That's our cabin section complete. Now let's go ahead and do the top section of the fuselage. Okay, great. So now let's go ahead and make the top section. So let's go to the front view and remind ourselves what the cross section of the upper section looks like. So if we go to the T-Spline workspace and go to Create, you'll see that there's nothing there that really resembles what this top section could look like. So in this case, obviously, we've got to make our own cross section, and that's what I'm going to show you here. So just press Ctrl-Z to get out of the T-Spline workspace. And now let's create a sketch on the front profile. So I'm going to create a new sketch on the front plane, and now we're going to follow that profile there. Now, because we know it's symmetrical, what we can do is just draw half of it and then mirror it later. So I'm going to create a line from the middle there all the way to the top. Press Escape, and once you have this line, just click on it and hit the construction icon over there. And what this does is it allows us to use this as a reference line rather than a line itself. Okay, then I'm going to zoom in and create a line from there to there. Press Escape, create control point spline, and then now I'm just going to follow this curve over here. So just add a few points there. And as always, once you're done with the sketch, you can go ahead and edit it. So I'm going to create one more point over here towards the end, and then I'm going to draw a line from there to there. Great, so that's our half section complete. What I'm going to do now is take that point there, and now we have this as a closed surface. Great, so I'm going to finish the sketch over here. And now if we go back to our T-Spline workspace, under Create, let's go to Extrude and click on this as a surface we want. I'm also going to click on Maintain Crease Edges. And now we're going to give it an arbitrary depth. So something like this, and go to Front and make sure it's still following that path over there that we gave it. And go ahead and press OK. So that's our half section complete. Now what we can do is just click on this one and press delete, because we don't need that. We're going to mirror this later on. Great, so now we have this, we can go ahead and start extruding it similar to how we did for the bottom section. So I'm just going to grab all of this, press M on my keyboard and move it back. So I'm going to leave it somewhere over there maybe. And the size currently doesn't matter. What matters the most right now is that we have the correct cross-section. Okay, so I'm going to press OK. Once again, select all of this, right-click, Edit Form, and I'm just going to scale it down a little bit so it matches our blueprint a little closer. Great. Press OK. Okay, so now we want to mirror this while we're still in the T-Spline workspace. And the way to do this is go to Symmetry and click on Mirror Duplicate. And the T-Spline body is this one, and the mirror plane we want to select is this one. And what you'll see it's done is it's mirrored it, and it's also created that green line there like we did for the box in the cabin section. Now if you go ahead and press OK, now you can use this similar to what we did in the box section of the cabin of the fuselage and start extruding. So firstly I'm going to work on the back section, so I'm just going to double click first, right click, Edit Form, press Alt on my keyboard and drag backwards. And as always, just try and match the profile as closely as possible. So one note over here is that don't worry too much about the bottom section of what we're doing over here. It's okay if it overlaps a little bit or isn't accurate right now, because later on the cabin section and this top section will have a few intersections that we'll have to take into account. So for now, it's okay if it overlaps a little bit, but don't go too crazy with it. Okay, as always, once you're done with the side, make sure it's also valid on the top. So you can see that we need to probably curve this in a little bit and extrude on the side again. Scale it down, top section, and scale it in a little bit more. And once again, don't be deceived by what this looks like from the top view. Just make sure you know what you're doing from the top side, so it gradually goes in. It doesn't do this sharp curve over here. Okay, so I'm going to extrude once more. And maybe till somewhere over here, because this is where we stopped the last one as well. And just drag it down a little bit. And make sure it reaches till the end of the tail section over there. So something like that. And press OK. Great, now let's work on the forward section. So double click, right click, Edit Form, Alt on your keyboard, and start extruding. So scale it down a little bit till there. Top view, scale it down a little bit over here. Again, extrude, scale, top view, scale, side view, extrude, scale. So we're just doing this till we're completely done with this section. Okay, and then we've got repeating the process again. Sorry, I'm just trying to concentrate. That's all. And again, just keep repeating the process. So the reason why I'm making more sections over here is because there's a little bit more curvature than there was on in the box section and the cabin side of the fuselage. So just making sure that it follows the shape accurately, so I've just made more sections than I did before. Okay, so once you're happy with this, I'm going to go ahead and press OK. And similar to the nose of the main fuselage, we're also going to create that section over here. So go ahead and click on Finish Form, And once again, this is a hollow body, so we want to turn this into a solid body. So what I'm going to do is surface, patch, and just click on that, press OK. Same thing for the front section, so patch, click on that, press OK, and then just stitch the three together to create a solid body. Great. So now let's work on the nose of the top section. Okay, perfect. So under solid, create a new sketch on that profile there, go to the front section, project, specified entities, press on that, press OK. Now we have that section there. Now press L, so the line tool, and from the top there, just do that. And so what this will do, as always, is just split the section into halves, which is exactly what we want. Okay, finish the sketch. And now I'm going to go to the right profile, and I'm just going to follow that curve there. So create sketch over here, press P on your keyboard. Again, specified entities, top dot, bottom dot. Again, I'm just repeating the process from before, so that's why I'm skimming through it. Create spline, control point spline, and I'm just going to follow. Come on, let me select it. There we go. That path over there. Maybe just double click there, and I'm just going to create a straight line from here to here because that section doesn't really matter because it's going to be hidden. Okay, and then press finish there. Okay, we're done with that. Press finish sketch, surface, create, loft. Make sure nothing is selected. First thing you want to select is this, then this one. Come on, and then that one. So in this case, looks like it didn't work either. So what we're going to do is repeat similar to what we did in the previous section. So we're just going to click on two of these and see whether this looks good from the top. And obviously it doesn't because it's still a sort of triangular section, but we want it to be curved. So instead of saying connected, we're going to say direction, maybe even for this one. Nope, so just connected there. And I'm happy with this. And for the simplicity of this tutorial, I'm going to leave it like this. But obviously if you want to, do add some rails so that your lofting is more efficient. Okay, and as always, if you want me to make a dedicated video on how to do that, please do let me know. I'll be happy to do that. Okay, press OK. And now I am going to mirror this like we did before. So create, mirror. The body I want to select is this one. Mirror plane is going to be our plane of symmetry. Join, press OK. And once again, so if I hide that body there, I am going to patch this up, press OK, stitch it, press OK, and now this is now a body. Great, so what we have now are the two different sections for the fuselage that we've created. So we've got our cabin section with the nose, and we've got our rotor section with its nose as well. So when we look at it from the side, it matches up. When we look from the top, it also matches up. So if this doesn't look like much to you right now, don't worry. Once we start adding the tail, the skids, and also the rotor section, it will start looking a lot better. So something like this. So yes, there is some patience required here, but I hope to you it's worth it. It is for me, and I hope you enjoy this further as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please do like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to support me further, I do have a Patreon page where you can subscribe from as low as £1 a month. There's a £1, £5, and a £15 one. You can go ahead and check out the benefits on my website. I will leave the link there in the description below. And as always, if you have any feedback or any requests, please do leave them in the comments below, and I'll be happy to check them out. So in the next one, we're going to be focusing on the tail section, and hope to see you there. Take care, guys.